Right now, there is a good chance your teeth are crooked. Maybe slightly. Maybe enough that you spent years in braces. You still have a retainer you're supposed to wear every night and don't. At the back of your mouth, your wisdom teeth are probably crowded, impacted, or waiting to cause a problem. 65% of modern humans show signs of needing orthodontic treatment. Wisdom tooth impaction is so common it's considered routine. 1 in 4 adults has had at least one wisdom tooth surgically removed. We treat this like it's just genetics. Like crooked teeth and crowded mouths are the price of being human. But here's what nobody tells you. For almost all of human history, this wasn't happening. Walk through any museum with ancient human skulls and you'll notice something that stops you. Those jaws are spacious. The teeth sit in perfect alignment. Room exists for every tooth, including wisdom teeth, without a trace of crowding, not in rare individuals, not in exceptional cases. That was simply how human mouths developed for hundreds of thousands of years. Something changed. It didn't take thousands of years to happen. It happened within a single generation. In some populations, within living memory, and the thing that caused it was not a virus, not a genetic mutation, not bad luck. It was the food we stopped chewing. Part 1. The jaw you were supposed to have. To understand what we lost, you first need to understand what the human jaw actually is. The jaw is not a fixed structure. It is not determined entirely at birth and simply revealed as you grow. Instead, it is an adaptive tissue that develops in direct response to the mechanical demands placed on it. Bone is living material. It remodels constantly throughout childhood and adolescence, and the signals that tell it how to grow come largely from one source: the forces generated by chewing. Every time you bite down on something tough, meat, raw vegetables, fibrous roots, hard seeds, the muscles of your jaw generate force. That force travels through the bone of your mandible and maxilla. The bone reads it. The bone responds. Stimulated bone grows wider and stronger, developing forward and laterally, creating the broad, spacious arch that gives teeth room to emerge straight. This is not a fringe theory. It has been demonstrated in controlled experiments. Rats raised on soft food develop significantly smaller jaws, shorter mandibles, smaller muscle attachment areas, a flatter, shorter face, than genetically identical rats raised on hard food. The only variable is the food. The jaw is the only thing that differs. The evidence in humans points in the same direction. The jaw you end up with as an adult appears to be shaped in significant part by how hard you chewed as a child. And for most of human history, children chewed extraordinarily hard. Not because of any deliberate practice, because the food required it. Part 2. How ancient humans ate. For the first 300,000 years of our existence as a species, the human diet was almost entirely unprocessed. Tough, fibrous, demanding. Raw and lightly cooked meat required sustained chewing. Wild roots and tubers were dense and resistant. Seeds were ground between teeth before any stone tools existed to do it. Dried fish, fermented vegetables, hard berries, nuts. Nothing in the ancestral diet was designed to dissolve in your mouth in 3 seconds. Researchers who have examined ancient skulls find the same thing. The teeth of hunter-gatherers show extreme wear patterns, often worn down to the roots, indicating a lifetime of continuous mechanical effort. But the jaws themselves are broad and spacious. The teeth, despite their wear, are straight. The dental arches are wide. The tooth wear is evidence of the work. The jaw breadth is evidence of what that work built. Daniel Lieberman, professor of human evolutionary biology at Harvard, has studied these remains in detail. He notes that most ancient hunter-gatherer skulls show nearly perfect dental alignment. Skulls from recent centuries tell a completely different story. Cavities, infections, crowded teeth, and impacted wisdom teeth at rates that would have been unrecognizable to earlier populations. When researchers compare medieval skulls to contemporary ones, the shift is stark. Among medieval populations, roughly 36% showed signs of needing orthodontic treatment. Among modern populations, that number has reached 65%. And the change happened fast. Faster than genetics can explain. Faster than evolution works. Wisdom tooth impaction, a condition almost non-existent in ancient human populations, became 10 times more common after the Industrial Revolution. 10 times. In roughly 200 years, the genome didn't change, the food did. Part 3. When everything changed. Here's where the accident happened. The shift began slowly with agriculture, around 12,000 years ago. When humans started farming, their diets changed. Grains replaced much of the tough, fibrous food that had driven jaw development across most of human history. Ground grain, cooked into porridge or flatbread, requires almost no chewing compared to raw meat and wild roots. Archaeologists can identify the transition to agriculture in skeletal remains not just from the tools and crops they find, but from the jaws, which narrow visibly as farming spreads through a population. Dr. Noreen von Kramen-Taubadel of the University of Kent published research in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, confirming this at a global scale. Across populations on every continent, she found a consistent pattern. Hunter-gatherer populations had significantly larger, more robust mandibles than farming populations. Agriculture appears to be the first significant dietary shift affecting human jaw development. But it was not the last, and it was not the worst. The second shock, the one that accelerated everything, came with the Industrial Revolution. For the first time in human history, food could be mechanically processed at scale. Flour was refined to a fine powder. Sugar became cheap and abundant. Bread became soft. Canned foods, boiled vegetables, processed meat, foods that had demanded real chewing for their entire history of human consumption, now needed almost none. And then came the third shock. Ultra-processed food. Foods engineered to be maximally palatable and minimally demanding. Foods that dissolve before your teeth have done any meaningful work. Breakfast cereals, packaged bread, yogurt, smoothies, mashed potatoes, everything that a modern child eats in an average day. A prehistoric child spending a single afternoon eating might chew through dried meat, fibrous roots, and hard seeds for an hour or more. Jaw muscles working continuously, generating thousands of mechanical signals to the developing bone. A modern child can eat an entire meal, cereal, a sandwich, a yogurt pouch, without ever seriously engaging the jaw once. The whole meal is over in minutes. That is not an isolated failure. It is happening 3 times a day, every day, across the entire developmental window, when the jaw is still deciding how large to grow. A 2025 study examining children aged 3 to 5 found that diets high in ultra-processed foods limited the chewing activity that stimulates bone growth, supported proper dental alignment, and built facial muscle strength. Dr. Laura Marquez Martinez, co-author of the study, stated it plainly. Chewing solid fibrous foods is essential for healthy jaw development. Soft, hyperpalatable processed foods fail to engage the jaw muscles, leading to underdeveloped bone structures. Tim Spector, epidemiologist and founder of the nutrition research company Zoe, has called this an epidemic of jaw shrinkage. His description of the mechanism is blunt. We are feeding children baby food for their entire childhoods. They never build the jaw muscles or the jaw's full size. The jaw built what the diet asked it to build. The diet stopped asking. Part 4. What happened to the jaw and? Here is what that silence does to the jaw. When bone is not adequately stimulated during the developmental window, it does not reach its full size. Not from damage. It is a quiet shortfall, the jaw falling short of the dimensions it was built for, because the signals were never consistently sent. The maxilla, the upper jaw, fails to develop its full width. Instead of growing forward and laterally, creating the broad arch that ancient skulls display, it grows downward and backward. The dental arch narrows, the palate rises instead of widening. The whole facial structure shifts, subtly, over years, in a direction that makes ancient and modern skulls look like they belong to different animals. And then, the teeth arrive. All of them. Because the genetic code for tooth number has not changed. Evolution works slowly. The diet changed faster. The jaw shrank. The teeth did not. 32 teeth, trying to fit in a jaw built for fewer. The result is malocclusion, which has become the default rather than the exception. Crowded teeth, overbites, crossbites, crooked canines erupting sideways because there is nowhere straight to go. And at the very back of the mouth, the wisdom teeth, the third molars that ancient humans had ample room for, arriving into a jaw that has run out of space. The orthodontic industry exists to manage what happens next. Braces to move teeth that are crowded because the arch is too narrow. Extractions to remove teeth with nowhere to go. Wisdom tooth surgery to deal with the molars the modern jaw cannot accommodate. Roughly 4 million Americans are currently wearing braces. Globally, it is worth over $50 billion, a $50 billion industry, to correct a problem that ancient human skulls show almost no evidence of having. But the consequences do not stop at the teeth. A smaller jaw also tends to mean a smaller airway. The anatomical connection is real, they share the same architecture, and one that develops smaller than it should is also narrowing the space air moves through. Some researchers argue this connects to the rise of sleep-disordered breathing in children, mouth breathing, snoring, and in more serious cases, sleep apnea. The clinical research here is still developing, but the structural relationship is not in dispute. The jaw is not just a chewing machine. It is part of the foundation of the face, the airway, and the breathing architecture behind it. When it falls short of what it was built to be, the consequences travel further than the mouth. Part 5. The Smoking Gun. The most striking evidence in this story comes from a dentist from Cleveland named Weston A. Price. In the late 1920s and 1930s, Price was troubled by what he was seeing in his patients: crooked teeth, cavities, narrow dental arches. He suspected modern processed food was a factor. To test this, he spent a decade traveling the world, visiting isolated populations that still ate traditional diets: Swiss mountain villages, Gaelic communities in the Outer Hebrides, indigenous groups in North America, Africa, Australia, and the South Pacific. What he found was consistent across every population and continent: broad, well-formed dental arches, naturally straight teeth with ample spacing, jaws that readily accommodated the full set of wisdom teeth, virtually no malocclusion. These were not exceptional individuals. Across diverse populations eating radically different traditional foods, dairy-rich, seafood-based, plant-heavy, meat-dominant, the pattern held. The common factor was not the specific food. It was the physical character of what they ate: unprocessed, tough, demanding to chew. Price's methodology has been critiqued by some researchers, and his nutritional theories are contested in parts. But the core observational finding, that populations eating traditional, unprocessed diets showed dramatically lower rates of dental crowding than populations eating modern food, has been independently supported by subsequent research across multiple disciplines. Then Price documented what happened when these same populations adopted modern food. In some communities, he observed the same village at 2 points in time: one generation eating traditional food, the next eating refined, processed food brought in by trade. The change was visible within a single generation. Children of parents with broad jaws and straight teeth developed narrow arches and crowded teeth. Not because the genome shifted, because the diet did. This pattern holds in the modern data. A 20-year study of a Kentucky community found that members raised on softer, more processed foods showed significantly more deviation from ideal dental occlusion. The British Orthodontic Society has confirmed that the impact of diet on jaw development is well documented. Von Kramon-Taubedel's global study established it at population scale. Genetics matters. Nobody serious argues otherwise. But changes this fast: wisdom tooth impaction increasing tenfold in 200 years, orthodontic need nearly doubling between medieval and modern populations, cannot be explained by genetics alone. The environment changed. The jaw responded. We have known this for decades. The processed food kept coming. 6. The orthodontic irony. Orthodontics emerged in the early 20th century because crooked teeth and crowded jaws were appearing at rates that made a correction industry viable, then necessary. The tools became more sophisticated. The results became more predictable. Today, orthodontics is one of the most routinely practiced forms of elective healthcare in the world. But orthodontics does not fix the jaw. It moves the teeth within the jaw that exists. Braces straighten what is there. They do not build what was never built. A narrow arch remains narrow after treatment. The mouth remains, in its underlying architecture, smaller than it was designed to be. Wisdom tooth extraction follows the same logic. The teeth are not removed because they are diseased. They are removed because there is no room. The jaw stopped growing before it finished, and the solution is to subtract teeth rather than ask why. Some orthodontists and craniofacial researchers are now advocating for early intervention: palate expanders, jaw development devices, dietary changes in early childhood that attempts to stimulate jaw growth during the developmental window rather than correct the damage afterward. The goal is not to move teeth. The goal is to build the jaw that soft food never built. These interventions are still not mainstream, and they are an attempt to replicate artificially what harder food would have done naturally. A jaw built to grow under continuous stimulation now grows up in near silence. The full picture. For hundreds of thousands of years, the human jaw grew in direct response to the food it processed. Tough, fibrous, demanding food sent constant mechanical signals to the developing bone. The bone grew broad. The arch widened. All 32 teeth fit. Wisdom teeth erupted into open space. Malocclusion was the exception, not the rule. Then, beginning with agriculture, accelerating with the Industrial Revolution, and finally with the rise of ultra-processed food, the mechanical demands on the jaw collapsed. Softer food. Then softer still. Then food engineered to disappear before the jaw has done any real work. The signals stopped. The jaw built what was asked of it, which was almost nothing. 2 in 3 people now need orthodontic treatment. Wisdom tooth impaction is 10 times more common than it was before industrial food. Children are growing up with jaws narrower than their teeth, airways smaller than they should be, and mouths that will require years of intervention to partially address something that simply did not exist for most of our species' history. Nobody planned this. It happened through changes that made food cheaper, safer, and easier to eat, without anyone understanding that what was being quietly removed was the mechanical signal that tells a jaw how large to grow. The jaw became what its environment asked of it, and the next time you eat something soft and processed and finished in 3 effortless seconds, your jaw is doing exactly what it has always done, responding to what it is given. You just gave it nothing to work with.